Hi, I'm Naomi Murphy, and this is the Locked Up Living podcast, where we talk with a wide range of people about harsh aspects of institutional life.
We also explore some of the ways to overcome them and to grow and develop. I'm David Jones. So join us every Wednesday morning, 6 o'clock UK time, for a fresh podcast.
Hey, so today's guest is Caitriona Lyons, and she's a mental health specialist in equine-assisted psychotherapy. Katrina is the founder of Equine Therapies and Counselling, and it was her dream to combine two of her passions, horses and mental health. Katrina has over 20 years' experience. She started training and working in the horse industry at 18 years of age, where her love and understanding of horses developed with every horse she encountered. As she says, they all teach us something, we just have to know how to listen. And now, nearly 10 years working in mental health, she's a specialised psychotherapist in domestic abuse and sexual violence and rape crisis. Katrina currently works with a diverse variety of populations using the Equine-Assisted Growth and Learning Association model of equine-assisted therapy, ranging from trauma, addiction, children and youth behavioural issues, individuals, families, wellness groups and corporation team building programmes. Really pleased you could come and join us today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Katrina. Very nice to meet you. So can we begin by you telling us what is horse-assisted therapy?
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of models out there, so it does get confusing for people. So there's equine therapy or therapeutic riding, and then there's equine-assisted learning, there's personal development through horses. So there is a vast array out there where the horses assist us to support people. The one I work under there, as Naomi was saying, is for mental health. So it's all on the ground. There's no horse riding, no horse experience needed. And it's just helping people to get to know themselves better through the horses. And it's amazing what the horses know to do and what they do. It's fascinating. Yeah.
Thank you. So we can go into that a bit more later on, perhaps. But I've got a sister who's always been involved with horses. Well, she's always owned horses, really. I don't know what else she's done with horses, but since she was quite young and since I was tiny, because she used to take me riding. And I think the horse I used to ride was called Smudge. So given that so many years ago, I think people always remember their first horse. How did you get into it?
Oh, yeah, definitely remember my first horse. So I grew up in a rural area in Ireland, down the southeast in North Kerry. And I grew up always hearing so I grew up on a little farm. And I always would have heard my dad, my grandparents, our neighbours talking about stories from when they were growing up with horses working the farms and taking the milk to the creamery. And I don't know, it just always fascinated me. There was something about them. I might be running around, but the minute a horse was mentioned, I was sitting and listening, So I'm not sure, maybe there's something in the DNA as well. I'm not too sure. But when I was 7 years of age, my dad got us a pony. So me and I have 3 siblings. I'm the youngest. And he got us a pony. Now, again, nothing fancy. There was no saddle. There was no bridle. It was sit on and hang on. But he swapped actually a van for Fred. Fred was the pony. He was a little pocket rocket. Absolutely. So we used to just sit on, and that's how we learned. Yeah. And it still stands to me. We learned maybe what would be considered the hard way, because there was no saddle, there was no bridle, and off we went. But yeah, it was absolutely amazing. Yeah. We had Fred for 27 years, imagine. So they're like a family member, really, when you take them in and properly take them in and mind them. Yeah. So that's where it began. Yeah, imagine I was 7 years of age. And just from that, like for me, I suppose sometimes in the house, there would have been a lot of chaos growing up. And I just would get myself out of the house and get away from the volcano and the icebergs, as I would call my two parents at the time. And I would just get outside, get to nature, get to Fred, and it just, again, like I say, I didn't have the words for it, but it just suited me. It was just special. Looking back, I can say that. At the time, I didn't know. I think children are amazing. They know what's right for them or good for them if they're given a chance. And yeah, Fred was definitely amazing for me. And it just developed from there. Animals were always a big part of my life. I wanted to be a vet, work with horses, and wouldn't have had the grades for a vet. Didn't particularly like school, especially secondary school. Oh my God. And yeah, when I was 18, left Kerry. I went off studying equine assisted, equine management and studies in Northern Ireland. And from there I was working in the horse industry for 18 years. And I guess that's how it got me on the mental health journey. Was in one of my jobs, I was working with a high security unit for teenage girls. It was called Clodagh House in Waterford. And the girls used to come to me for horse riding lessons and how to care for horses. And from that, I just started to see how much horses meant to them. It wasn't just me and my story. They just start talking and telling you some of the stuff they'd lived and gone through. And I'd no mental health training or anything at the time. It was literally, I was teaching them how to look after horses, how to care for them. And just from that, I had a great relationship with the girls. I was very fond of them. And from that, I just got fascinated about horses and mental health. And so I went off and trained with IGALA, as I was saying earlier, so the Equine Assisted Growth and Learning Association. And I became an equine assisted therapist that way first, before I went back to college and studied mental health and psychotherapy. Yeah.
Oh, it's a beautiful description of your journey there, Katrina.
Well, thank you. God.
But so obviously you did have a background in animals, working so closely with them, and your relationship with your own special horse, who I've forgotten the name now. Fred.
Yeah.
I don't know why I forgot that, because for years and years and years we had a cat called Fred. So I should easily remember that. So from what you're saying, you didn't at all see horses as being a particularly middle class or upper class occupation or pursuit or hobby.
No. I think it can be very much perceived to be because of maybe what's on television, social media maybe. And it depends what you want from it. Like if you want to go like competing and things, absolutely, there is an elitist side to it, so it really depends what you want from it and your time that you see with the horses. So like if you're into connecting with them and more that side of it, and maybe trekking and maybe a little bit more leisure kind of, no, it can be easily for middle class people. Yeah, sure was for me anyway. Like I say, like my dad swapped a van for a pony. Like that would still happen in Ireland, in certain places. So yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I think, if you manifest it enough, it'll happen. So
thank you. So you said you went to work in the horse industry for 20 years. Did I get that right? And then you kind of segued into working, with girls, I gather in a hostel, was it?
Well, yeah, they were in a high security unit, and in their social care workers would bring them to me for horse riding lessons and care and everything.
So that 20 years, what were you doing in that time?
Oh, wow. Oh, God. Rein me in if you need to. I have a tendency to ramble. So, so from the north, when I finished my degree up north, I went to Grennan College in Thomastown in Kilkenny, where I met an amazing lady, Bridget McCarthy. She was just inspirational, her passion and love for horses. And that's really, from Fred to her, is really where it kind of really landed in me that I can do this, you know, that you could do this for a living. And that's where I got my British Horse Society exams, which you can travel the world with if you want to. So I worked in different parts of Ireland. I worked in breeding studs. I worked out in Australia in a polo yard. I worked in riding schools, teaching people, taught amazing children and adults, actually some great friends from it down through the years. The racing industry, not that I was any good at it. I'd be the first to put my hand up. Not that I was any good at it, but I just loved it. The buzz I got from it, yeah. And that was the same as a kid. I was useless. Like, I was useless at it. My brother was amazing at it, but I just strived to do what he did. And that's probably in my character. I'm a bit, even though I mightn't be good at it, I'll just keep chomping at it, you know. Yeah, but now it's, yeah, I love it. So I've worked in all areas really with it. And the mental health is the one that I've probably found my soul work. Yeah, it's just seeing what it does for people, children, adults. It's, yeah, sometimes there aren't words actually. Yeah.
Thank you. Naomi?
So what does a typical horse-assisted therapy session look like?
So I'll talk you through how we do our sessions. So I generally will come out and meet the people in the car park, or we have a little canteen just beside the car park, and we walk in. And so under the EGALA model, there's the mental health person and an equine person always working together, and the horses. So it's seen as a team of 3. And so then we'd introduce ourselves, a little bit of what we do. And then from there in the arena, there's like a kind of a roped off area. And that's where the people can stand in to start with, because some people that would come have no horse experience, which is perfect. You don't need any. Actually, sometimes if you have horse experience, you have to unlearn some of the horse things from the horse industry, like don't stand behind the horse isn't really correct, in that it's just horses have a blind spot behind them by 1.5 meters. So if you pop out of that, you can give them a fright. But sometimes in the horse industry, it can be taught in a scare way, never stand behind them, you know. But anyway, so we start in the roped off box, and it just gives people a chance to land, and we observe the horses. The horses are free outside the rope box, just being themselves. But in that, they're taking in our energies, what's going on for us, what people have brought in with them from their busy lives. And in this part, we explain to people we do our best not to touch the horses, and we just observe them. So sometimes the horses will approach the rope box and they're trying to see, we have a few real characters in the horses, and some of them think they're half human and they should be in the box with us. So myself and my equine person, we'll keep the horses that they're not allowed to enter the rope box, you know, and it allows people to arrive. It allows them to feel safe, especially if they haven't been around horses before, because there can be people thinking, oh, these are massive, powerful animals. They're a bit scary. So this area just allows everyone to arrive. But what it also does for the horses is it gives the horses a chance to suss everyone out. Is everyone stepping into my home safe? And that's how horses survive in the wild, and that's how they kind of work in the therapeutic area as well. So they're sussing out at a slight distance if they want, are these people safe for me to be around and be part of my herd? And from there, we observe them for a few minutes, and we do it in the quiet without touching. And then we just check in what everyone's noticing. And there's no rights or wrongs. It's whatever anyone's noticing. So it's very individual. So for some people, it might be, oh, that horse looks lonely over there. He's on his own. Or it might be, those 2 horses over there look really friendly because they're together, or they might be grooming each other. And from that, straight away, it's starting to create a picture, you know. So for the person that said that horse looked lonely, you'd be, oh, okay, I hear you say lonely. Where might you have seen loneliness before? Or where might you have felt it before? So in order for us to see something out of us, we must have seen it or experienced it before. And so it kind of transgresses from there. You're then inviting the people when they've all had a chance, depends if you're working with an individual or a group, when they've all had a chance to share, you invite them to go out to the space if they're feeling comfortable, and they can go meet the space and meet the horses if they wish. And we just ask them always to check in how you're feeling. So as you're approaching the horses, how are you feeling inside? Do different horses bring up different feelings? And it really flows from there. We check in again after that. So the first in the rope box, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, depending if it's a group, could be towards 15 minutes. By the time everybody just has shared their piece, they go out into the arena, into the space with the horses, and that could be maybe another 10 minutes. And then from there, it kind of starts to flow what way the session is going. Like with the therapeutic and psychotherapy work, it'll be going a lot more deeper with individuals. A lot of the time, a lot of traumas are coming up. We work a lot in addiction. So we meet a lot of depression, anxiousness, and just a lot of childhood trauma, really, in the individual work. Grief, we do grief workshops, and I suppose we were doing that now last night, so that's probably why that's in my head. So I suppose it's the first time with grief people get to see it outside of themselves, so people get a chance to look at it from the outside. Like, so at last night's part of it was, what does grief look like for you? What is it like for you? And off they go creating individually for this part. Sometimes it's together, but for this part it was individually. And they just created beautiful pieces. So there's props in the arena. There's like pool noodles, there's hula hoops, there's balls, buckets, plastic poles, just for things to create with. So like one of the women messaged me earlier just saying how much she got. She felt like she was able to release from it, that she could see it outside of her, what was always stuck inside. Yeah.
So you're kind of hinting at what it is about the therapy that's working and what the aims are. I just wondered if you could just say that a bit more clearly in terms of what it is about working with the animals that helps. What are you hoping to achieve for people?
So it depends on the individual what they're looking for when they come to us. So for addiction, if they're in a recovery part, you're working on the steps for recovery, what's keeping them safe. So it's all in that regard. So it's very individual what people are coming from, but how the horses actually, if I'm answering your question, how the horses actually work for the people is they're a herd animal. So when they're in the wild, they synchronize all their heart rate, their heartbeats, so their heart variability. And so that's said to be a coherent heart rate. And when they see something dangerous like a lion, one of their heart rates will go out a beat. And that sets off the whole herd, you would say, instantaneously. They just gone, there wouldn't even be a second in it. So when people step into the space in the therapeutic arena with them, they're trying to sync our heart rates, just like they do with one another in the herd. Yeah. So they can hear a human heart beat 1.5 meters away. And they have an electromagnetic field of 13 to 17 meters. Ours is only 2.5 to 3.5 meters. And from that, a coherent heartbeat is like if we're feeling maybe gratitude or we're feeling content, our heart rate is said to be coherent. If we're feeling anxious or stressed, we have an incoherent heartbeat. So horses naturally have a coherent heartbeat. So when we step into the arena with them, they're starting to regulate our heartbeat, and every session, I don't think I've had one session, be it a child or an adult, where within 10, 15 minutes, people aren't saying how calm they feel or at peace or how relaxed they feel. So that's one of the first things you'd hear from them. And then another thing with the horses, how they work, is actually the University of Sussex did a study on their facial expressions. So horses have 17 facial expressions. So we've 27, and chimpanzees have, I think, is a 13 or 14, but horses have 17. So they've more than chimpanzees, and they're the same facial expressions as we have, like furrowing or brow, lip curling. And from that, it's now been proven that they actually, they want to communicate with us. So they're not just communicating with other horses, they're actually trying to communicate and read our facial expressions as well. So from that, like, we've horses in the sessions that they nearly sense from someone when they want fun or need fun, and that horse will go to that person. It's fascinating. Or if someone's carrying a lot of hurt or sadness, or they feel this person needs protecting, we've 2 horses that nearly argue over protecting this person, and no one trained them to do that. People think we train them, but they just do it naturally. Yeah. So it's fascinating. So I'm not sure, Naomi, did that answer?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I found that really fascinating as an answer, actually. I've been looking a lot at the HeartMath Institute's website, and they've got lots of really amazing information on there, including about sort of how the human electromagnetic field extends outside of the body. But I didn't know the horses were so much greater. And then also the fact that the herd thing, I was thinking recently, I run in a group, and you can see people's footsteps synchronize when they're running. Mainly, there might be 1 or 2 exceptions, but most people's feet run at exactly the same beat. And so that's had me thinking about whether heart rate, how that might affect heart rate, but heart coherence as well at the same time. But yeah, really, really interesting to hear that, and to hear about the gravitation towards people that might need something that they're able to deal with. So really amazing. Is there something unique about horses that makes them particularly suited to do this work? I mean, you spoke about the facial expressions, but is the fact that they're a herd animal, or are there other elements of horses that make them really suited to this?
Yeah, it's a big part of it is the herd part, as I was saying about the heart, but not just that. Like, they've dynamics like family dynamics and relationships. So like, if you've a herd and an established herd of horses, they have this utmost respect, and usually it is for the senior of the herd, and not necessarily the eldest, but as in the older ones in the herd to the youngest ones. And it's fascinating how the younger ones won't really poke, we'll say, at the older ones in the herd as much. They do an odd day, but as much. So it's so like families and children, it's very similar. And also horses experience loss and grief just like people do. They have a sadness when they lose a member of their herd. So they're so similar to us in many ways. When we step in to the therapeutic arena of intervention with the horses, they suss us out. Are we safe? So are we good, which is, are we safe? And if we are, they start to take you in as one of their herd. So straight away they're taking you into those dynamics, and it is amazing. Like, in sessions we'll hear from people, oh, that one reminds me of my mom or my dad or my brother or my sister, and they'll even name the horse after the person that they're reminding them of. Yeah. And that's something I forgot to say. Like, in the work we do, which I struggled with when I first trained in it, we don't give the horses names, or we don't give anything about their identity. And the reason being is they can become anything in a session. Like, a horse can symbolize a feeling or emotion for someone. They can remind 2 horses, sometimes it has happened, 2 or 3 horses can remind one person of their different personalities, their different characteristics, or another reason would be, like, if you knew a Peter that was a bit of a mean person, let's say, and one of our horses was called Peter, straight away you'd be put in that. So we don't give their names, which killed me at first, and a lot of people say to me, why not? So we do explain that at the start to people as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And how many sessions would an individual typically have?
It's very different. So it depends on the people you'd be working with. I suppose for family sessions, the family work, it's powerful with family work, maybe 6 sessions for family work. I think in the family work, you really get to see, everybody gets a chance to see their role and each other's roles. And so 6 sessions maybe with the family work. And then individually, about 8 sessions. But then in saying that, like, we work with a lot of young people with behavioural issues that would come to us through the services like TUSLA, CAMS, some of the services in Ireland. And for some of those kids, we'd be recommending 10 or 12 sessions. They've been through a lot, an awful lot. And it could take 4 sessions before you get in past some of the walls, you know. So for them, yeah, it's slightly more. And I suppose that's the part of the work I find harder, is a lot of the time we might get, especially with the children, we get that they've already maybe done talk therapy, they've done play therapy, they've done art therapy. So they're nearly therapeutic out of it by the time they come to us. And I suppose that'll be, my dream is that the horse therapy will become a first choice, not a last resort, you know. Yeah, hopefully we'll keep manifesting.
Thank you. And are there particular kinds of clients who are especially suited to horse-assisted therapy, or people to whom it particularly appeals, or is it, you know, is there an ideal client and other people who it's just not suited for?
I think it suits everyone. Look, I think I'll get phone calls from people asking, you know, will it suit for this? Will it suit for that? But from what I've seen so far, it works with everyone, young, old, in between. I've had a few clients where I'd be working with them, and this is male, female, boys, girls, men, women. And I've questioned, is this for them? You know, you'd be curious, is this going somewhere? Is this? And next thing you've got this amazing session where someone has just completely opened up. Like, I was working with a young boy fairly recently. He was 10 years of age, and he came to us again. He'd done play therapy, and play therapy is amazing for some people, you know. And he came to us and he was just real shut down, no connection with the horses, barely a connection with us. So I was like, maybe this is one of those people that this isn't for. So I'm always checking in on that, because I get so many kids that have had so much therapy. I'm very conscious of putting more on them, you know. But next thing, and I had to change my equine person. One of my equine specialists had actually moved away. So I had a new equine person coming in. So I just given her a little brief on him that, look, he's a lot of walls up still. We're not really getting in there, unsure on the relationship with the horses. And she came in on I think it was his 4th session, if I'm remembering right. And next thing, she was kind of looking at me as if I'd lost my marbles, because and everything came, and we haven't been able to stop him talking since. And his foster care mom cannot believe the difference in him. She's like, he's talking, he's communicating. Like, there's still issues, don't get me wrong. Of course there is, he's been through a lot, but now he's actually talking, and he's asking his social care worker questions, you know. So it's amazing what they do. Yeah. So we have had quite a few clients. There's 3 or 4 coming to mind anyway, that I'd be like, will it work for you? And just when I'm questioning it, there's just this big breakthrough, you know. So I think the horses know. I'm not sure. They just know when to push the next button or give the next poke.
Thank you. And sorry, David, I nicked one of your questions then. So
I noticed, but never mind.
Sorry,
I've got
you
plenty I wanted to say, so don't worry about that. I was going to ask you whether you thought horses were sensitive, but clearly from what you've been saying, you do think they're highly sensitive. I've learned so much about horses from you today. I mean, I had no idea they had different facial expressions. I could well understand they might synchronize their heartbeats because clearly they're herd animals and they're predated animals, as we saw very recently when those, I think it was 4 horses stampeded down Whitehall, and which was a shocking experience for everybody, really. But to get back to you, what about gender differences? Because we often think little girls, My Little Pony, or teenage girls want a pony, and yet up until I suppose fairly recently, the whole horse racing business seems to have been very macho. How do you see that? Are there differences between male and female in the work that you're doing?
In the work that I'm doing, no. Like, I suppose for me at the moment, I do women's wellness groups, or even my grief groups, my open groups. It is mainly women coming, but in the addiction groups, it's probably 50-50. Maybe slightly more men, actually. Yeah, a bit more men actually in my addiction groups. So I don't think there's any difference, as there would be, as you're saying, kind of in the horse industry itself. Or even when you're going for riding lessons, it's nearly all as little girls. There's very few boys. But no, with this work, there's no real difference. Like, I mean, I do find the energy in the women's wellness groups, it's real. It's so alive, but yet so peaceful or something. It's a real spiritual energy. And I do think I might do another thesis on it yet. We'll see. But I do think there's an extra connection with women and maybe Mother Nature. And that could be part of that spirituality link with the horses. It's quite magic. But in saying that, I haven't done an all male group. Again, it's definitely in the dreams to do it, because I think, like, I see it in the addiction work, the softness it allows men to bring, and like horses automatically bring this, I suppose, because of their strength, this respect from people, and it can allow people that never have got to relax and think someone else has my back. The horse lets people feel that way. So yeah, there's no gender difference. Like, I even think of a little boy I worked with who had massive, it's hard to even comprehend it really. He had massive anger issues. He was only 8 years of age, and he used to have to be restrained by 2 teachers or put in a kind of, what did they call it, like a restraint room or lockdown room because of his anger issues. And like, he came to us, again, wouldn't try a lot of therapies, which is okay. He came to us, and I'll never forget it. Like, as much as I say the women kind of can have a spiritual energy, this little boy on his own now, he was coming for individual sessions. And at the time he was, I think, allowed in school for an hour or an hour and a half. They couldn't allow any more just because of the outbursts. And there was a lot going on at home, like an awful lot going on at home. But he would come into the arena. The first day he came in, and on the first session with children, the guardian or parents are invited to come in, or if there's other little family members, they're more than welcome as well. And this little boy was flying around, loads of energy. The horses racing. The horses didn't know what happened. And the parents were like, oh, come over here. And I was like, no, if that's what he needs to do, let him do that. So we did our introductions, who we were, what we kind of do. And then we just ask the parent, the guardian, have they any questions. So they then leave, and we're with the child, the teen. And in this case, we're just asking him, has he any questions? No, he barely even wanted to look at us. And next thing, we did our observing the horses. Now, he was still out with them and watching. He didn't even want to come into the rope box. And this was perfect. This is what this kid needed. But he just had this connection with the horses. I'll never forget it. He just picked up a brush, and the horses are free, and he just started brushing them. And me with my mental health hat on, I'm like, oh God, I better check in here now. And So I went over to him and I just asked, everything okay? I'm just checking in. And I just got a look. So I knew I was interfering. So I stepped out. Again, myself and my ES, we moved ourselves away. So we try and stay out of the picture so we're not interfering with the clients and the horses. And same thing, he just went brushing and brushing and brushing. Now, we checked in 2 or 3 times in that session. And each time it was, no, we're good. All right, just get the look, you know. And my ES turned to me. And same as me, when I was an ES in the start, she wouldn't have mental health background. And she said, oh my God, the energy in the place. It was just spine tingling. And that's what he needed. He just needed to be just left be. The horses were doing healing beyond words, you know. Within 3 sessions, he was added on. I think they added 15 minutes to school, then 15 minutes. After 6 sessions, he was at 2.5 hours back in school. And I'll put my hands up. We did so little. It was the horses. Yeah. It was amazing. And one of those horses doesn't particularly like being brushed. He'll let you brush him for 20 seconds and then he thinks he's fabulous and he moves away. But for this boy, he stood. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, Katrina, you're a brilliant advocate for the therapy, I must say. How available is it? How would someone go about finding a therapist?
Yeah, so it depends which one. There's so many ones out there. It depends what ones you're looking for. So if you're looking for the therapeutic riding side and the equine, maybe personal development or learning, then you've got the International Institute in Ireland, which is Horses Connect. If you're looking for the one I do, which is mental health and well-being, so you have to have the mental health person is an accredited counsellor or psychotherapist. Then on the egala.org website, you find a program and you put in where you're from. So it's in 40-something countries worldwide. I probably should know that, but 40-something countries worldwide.
We'll share some links in the transcript as well, Katrina, so that people can easily find the organisations you've referred to. Yeah,
brilliant. Thank you. Thanks, Naomi. Yeah, so you put in where you're from and it'll actually bring you up where people are closest to you for doing it. Yeah, so it's definitely, like when I started it in 2014, was it 15? I think at that stage there was only 2 teams in Ireland. And now we probably have maybe 10 teams working in Ireland, you know, so yeah. And there is a training coming up as well in Ireland in Meath in the June. I should know this. I think it's the 24th of June. And there's one in England for the advanced skill sets, the start of July in Tamsworth. So, but they're all up on the egala.org. Yeah. So it's getting more and more accessible, and the more the better, because like when we can share what these animals can do, oh yeah.
So besides horses, are there any other things that you would recommend listeners do to promote their well-being?
I think for me, that's where it gets baffling for people. There's so much out there. You know, I suppose, look, we're all so different. For me, a big part of my wellness journey was turning off the television. So most of the time, I won't say always, but most of the time, I don't watch television Monday to Friday. And I wake up the next day, I just feel my head is way clearer, and I just feel like things flow more, you know. And in doing that now, I'm not going all the time. I'm a Sudoku nerd, so I love my Sudokus. But I don't know, it just, yeah, turning off the TV, less social media has had a massive impact in my life. And from the kids I work with, the adults I work with, myself, like just getting in nature, whether it's planting plants, grooming horses, grooming dogs, sitting on the ground with your dog, your cat, I just find it so grounding. Yeah, but it's listening to ourselves. I think when we turn off the TV and turn off social media, for me anyway, I started to see myself more and see what I need. As humans, we actually do know what's good for us. It's just I think a lot of the time it can get blocked because there's always something on social media, something on the TV telling us we need more, and I think we need less. But I'm a bit of a hippie, so that probably ties in with that.
Really enjoyed hearing about your work with horses today, Katrina. Absolutely fascinating. Thanks very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much indeed, Katrina. Great to meet you.